Side B with Dave and Steve. I am Dave.
And I'm Steve.
All right, it is just the two of us today. We're not going to be able to get guests every week. We don't... we have full-time jobs. We can't really dedicate that much time to booking.
Dave and I are both child-free, and all of our friends are not.
Yeah.
Except Sean, but he also has a strict schedule.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Steve, what do you know about, like, the early history of punk rock? Like, scenes. What do you know about, like, the clusters of scenes that developed around it?
I have kind of a vague sense of all the little different scenes because the thrash and speed metal bands that I listened to all kind of fed off bands like that. Like Anthrax, for instance, was really into, like, the New York hardcore scene. Metallica was, well, they were kind of all over the place with their punk influences. They did a Sex Pistols cover, for instance. They recently did a Fear cover. I don't think Mustaine really stayed around a single scene there. And then just a lot of crossover thrash bands that would cover punk and hardcore songs just because the music translated so easily. So I'm mostly familiar with, I'm a bit familiar with, like, the New York hardcore scene. Thanks to you, I'm a bit familiar with the CBGB scene. I'm pretty familiar with the LA hardcore scene with, like, Black Flag and all that. And I think this is all kind of stuff that's after this.
Yeah, all this is all over the place. So what I am bringing for you is called Not Good for Your Health, Punk Nuggets from 1974 to 1982. It'll have some hardcore stuff, like some CBGB stuff, some of, like, the London stuff, and a little bit of post-punk thrown in, and a little bit of cowpunk thrown in on the very last side, too,
Nice.
Just to make things weird. Yeah, this is a double LP compilation that I picked up on Record Store Day, I don't know, some year when I was buying a lot of records. We talk a lot about when records were cheaper. This was near the tail end of when records were cheaper, so I don't know what year that was. I just wanted to, like, I was browsing and I wanted to get something that was a mix of different songs to put on when I had a record on, and this has a lot of songs that I love on it. I'm going to real quick hand this over and have you look at the song list and tell me which ones you know.
Well, let's see. Obviously, I'm familiar with the first song by the Ramones.
Yeah, Blitzkrieg Bop.
Familiar with Television as a band just based on the name because you've told me about them before. Not familiar with Richard Hell and the Voidoids?
The Voidoids, Richard Hell and the Voidoids.
They should tour with Voivod. Not familiar with Dead Boys, Tuff Darts, and I am familiar with Patti Smith, of course. Let's see, then we got side 2. I am not familiar with any of those.
All right, we'll get, yeah. The side 3.
Side 3, familiar with Pretenders. I think I've heard Johnny Thunder's name in, like, reading articles about history, like music history and stuff.
Oh yeah, when we get to that side, you'll definitely know you've heard of him when we talk about it some, but yeah.
Gang of Four, I'm not very familiar with them, but we did have a commenter recently recommend one of their albums, which we're going to add to our roster. So that's our first audience request. Or
yeah.
At least we're going to consider it that because why not?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Let's see, not familiar with Germs. And then last side here, not familiar with Flesh Eaters, the Gun Club. I am familiar with Fear. I was talking to you earlier about the collaborative album that Lee Ving did with Dave Mustaine, which is, I'm not going to say it's good, especially the version that he redid the vocals on. The version that Lee Ving sang on had some decent tunes on it. We'll probably cover that someday on this and probably make fun of it. And we'll probably make some fun of Mustaine songs and, like, Lee Ving songs.
Yeah, probably.
Of course, I'm familiar with Misfits. I'm familiar with the Replacements. I actually think it's funny that Guns N' Roses had the bass player from the Replacements.
Yeah,
Guns N' Roses.
Tommy Stinson. It kind of makes sense if you're gonna replace stuff, have, like, someone else who is related to punk take his place. Yeah.
Well, and then also the Replacements.
Yeah.
And then Rank and File, not familiar with them. So,
all right.
There's going to be a lot of things on here that I'll be hearing for the first time, and I'm really looking forward to that because I hear you drop some of the names of these bands, and I just know based on our little Venn diagram of music influences that we have a lot in the middle, so there's going to be a lot of stuff here for me, I assume.
Yeah, and then, like, when I picked this up, I didn't know every band on here even. I definitely knew the first side really well. And then 2 and 3, I knew a pretty good mix of most of them. I think everyone had like at least one that I didn't know. And then side 4 was the one I was least familiar going in. But yeah, this is just, really cool little compilation with a bunch of stuff that I had. And it also kind of gave me an excuse to have a few songs without necessarily rebuying stuff that I already had, which I wasn't really interested in at that point, which I am interested in now, but I wasn't creating content about it. So
Right.
why would I want to? But that, real quick, look at the cover. Tell me what you think.
Well, you don't want to wait till side 1 like we
Yeah. Gonna try to get better at that. Yeah.
Well, it looks like on the front here we have some, I think this is mastering equipment.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
But like old mastering equipment, so it doesn't look like the stuff you have right behind you.
Yeah, no, this is all hardware, so it kind of looks like it's something you'd see on the bridge of the Enterprise in the 60s almost.
I wonder how much of the background sci-fi equipment in like 60s shows like Star Trek and Doctor Who was just like old recording equipment that was broken.
Probably a ton, especially on Doctor Who. I've been watching the classic series, and I'm taking a bit of a break right now because that show is not ADHD friendly.
No.
Yeah, but there's a lot of great moments in between not so great moments, we'll put it that way, but it's still an iconic show. But yeah, there are times where I'm looking in the background. You could definitely tell they went to like either a military hardware surplus store or something, and well, I guess it's the BBC. They probably could have just asked the military for it.
Yeah.
I'd imagine a lot of that stuff is. I even remember one time seeing Scotty on the original series, like working on a panel. I can easily recognize the old 60s circuit board that he was looking at. And then we turn it around here on the back, and it is a Band-Aid because, this is not good for your health.
No.
And, if you got a cut, you don't want to rub your punk nuggets right into the cut. It'll probably get infected.
No. Yeah, you'll probably get hepatitis, finger hepatitis.
Yeah. And, you'd probably have a bad time if you got hepatitis. So yeah.
Hepatitis B. The B is for bad time.
Is there anything here on the inside? Not just the sleeve.
Nope, just the sleeve. It is a comp that was made a long time after 1982, which is the last year covered. So yeah, it was just
2018 on the back here.
Which is probably the year I got it then on Record Store Day. So yeah, records were not as expensive as they are now, but they were starting to creep up there at that point.
Oh, 2018. So innocent.
So innocent.
Well, all right. I think that's it. Let's throw this on.
All right. And we are back. That was...
Anyway.
Yeah. And we're back. That was side 1. On that side, we listened to Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones, See No Evil by Television, Blank Generation by Richard Hell and the Voidoids, Sonic Reducer by the Dead Boys, Your Love is Like Nuclear Waste by the Tuff Darts, and Hey Joe by Patti Smith. These were all New York bands that played at CBGB's. Steve, what did you think?
Well, first of all, obviously, everything that's been said about the Ramones has pretty much been said, but a great song to pick from them. It's one that I've always liked.
It's a great song. It's good for the intro. There's, a lot has been said about that song by a lot of people.
I'm more particular to Beat on the Brat, but I also love Blitzkrieg Bop, so.
Yeah, same album. Them at their earliest, them at their roughest, just getting together. When they were on their earliest days, one thing that I will point out that's been pointed out in a lot of different places, a lot of my sources for the CBGB stuff is the book Please Kill Me by Legs McNeil and Gillian McCain. I don't remember if this is mentioned in it at all, but it's been mentioned so many times in so many places. But they would get into fights on stage about what song they should play next because they didn't write down their set list and they wouldn't agree on what to do. And you can actually find videos of it. It's pretty great.
That sounds like Guns N' Roses. They never did a set list, and I don't think they ever really argued about it though. They just kind of went with it. But I was also going to say this is probably a great part to bring up some of our lovely commenters. I recently posted a meme on the punk meme subreddit where I put a picture of Lemmy on top of the Godfather meme for Family Guy or whatever. And some guy in the comments like, yeah, Lemmy stole the Ramones sound for himself and yeah, blah, blah. And I'm like, obviously the Ramones influence on Motorhead is very obvious, but stole their sound.
No, the Ramones were not as bluesy as Motorhead. The Ramones, well, at the point of Blitzkrieg Bop, they couldn't play the blues, but eventually they did their own thing. Like I can easily tell they're different bands. Like in fact that I think that Lemmy's tribute to the Ramones, Ramones, doesn't sound exactly like a Ramones song, and when the Ramones covered it, it doesn't sound the same as Motorhead's original to me. So yeah.
So comments are hilarious. Like I love reading them even when they're kind of wrong, because it's just funny to think about everybody's perspective on this kind of stuff. Moving on to Television, the thing that I like the most about that song is the drummer had some really great hi-hat work, and you pointed out that the guitars, the way that they played off each other, that was definitely very interesting and unique, and I really enjoyed that song.
Oh yeah. Television was a great band. They were the first group of vagrant street punks to show up at this country and bluegrass bar called CBGB's and say, "Hey, we want to book a gig there." And the owner was like, sure, why not? So they were kind of like ground zero for punk, because if they hadn't done that, like who knows where the Ramones and Blondie and the Heartbreakers and all that would have ended up. Probably at Max's Kansas City, which was also a great venue in that scene, but just that one club wasn't going to be enough to sustain it. So Television has an important part in punk history because of that. They were, much more technical than a lot of what punk would become, just like with that guitar work. Tom Verlaine was like a classically trained pianist, their lead singer, before he decided, I'm going to get into guitar and give myself a stage name after a poet. They were definitely on the arty side of the New York punk scene. The New York punk scene was very arty, but there was kind of like a break. There was like bands like Television and Patti Smith and Richard Hell and the Voidoids, which were definitely leaning into like the coming from like the St. Mark's Place poetry scene, and it was real artists that did a lot of heroin coming together to do their songs about their fucked up relationship to Jesus. And and then there was the street tough scene, which was like the Ramones and Blondie and the Dead Boys, who were like, we carry around switchblades and sniff glue.
Speaking of CBGBs, I was watching a video on the Rock and Roll True Stories channel, and the guy he goes around and he finds some interesting stories about rock topics, and the one he covered was the history of CBGB. And, he talked about a lot of the bands that are actually on this compilation, including Television and Patti Smith, who are on this side. But I can't believe that they closed that venue, and then I don't know who got the name, but they turned it into a fucking airport restaurant.
Yeah.
That looks like a fucking gentrified storefront that doesn't look like anything I would have ever associated with CBGBs.
Yeah. I don't know if the airport restaurant is still around, but if you ever encounter it, it is your duty to turn the restrooms into what the restrooms at CBGB looked like in 1974. Just piss all over everything. Smoke whatever you can in there, and just desecrate it. Make it the authentic CBGB's experience.
As producer of this podcast, I am supposed to tell you no.
Yeah.
But much like Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation, I'll just be like, wink.
Yeah. But yeah, Television was an interesting band too. By the time they recorded anything, they had moved on to their second bass player, who they poached from Blondie. A lot of people like to poach members from Blondie. Television did with their bass player. Patti Smith did with her bass player / second guitar player. And she tried to poach their drummer at his audition. It's something I just learned from reading Debbie Harry's autobiography.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Patti Smith and Television were a little competitive with all the other bands because they saw themselves as the best and the ones who were going to succeed the most. And it turns out Blondie, Talking Heads, and the Ramones ended up getting a lot bigger. So they put out some good music, but Television and Patti Smith ended up kind of burning some bridges with people that they probably didn't need to.
Yeah.
Patti Smith's recent books are really good. I would recommend reading those too, especially the first one she wrote, Just Kids, about like before she started as a musician, when she was broke and living in like the Chelsea Hotel in New York with legendary photographer Robert Mapplethorpe before anyone knew who either of them was.
Yeah.
But people in these scenes didn't necessarily have each other's backs, which is kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. And we got a lot of great music by them feeling like they had to compete with each other. But
I mean, we're both musicians. we've been part of things like that in our own scenes. So.
Yeah, it's little pieces of drama.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. This will segue us really well into the next song. So Television fired their first bass player for not being technically proficient enough, even though he was like one of their main songwriters and had kind of helped Tom Verlaine really get started in booking the gigs and all that, and like doing a lot to write up about the gigs by doing some kind of unethical journalism by reviewing their own shows under a different name. But that was Richard Hell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Blank Generation by Richard Hell and the Voidoids. The first thing I thought is they should have done a tour with Voivod, because that'd be funny to say. Richard Hell and the Voidoids with Voivod.
Yeah, he was a poet before he was a musician. So like there were a lot of lyrics crammed into that song.
Yeah, and overall I really liked the swagger that the song had. It kind of had like an old school, like earlier rock and roll swing to it, and then the energy that I assume Richard Hell was the vocalist.
Yeah,
his delivery I thought was really good, and while not like technically proficient, it was somehow both amusing and tough.
Yeah, and like the whole like Blank Generation, like I've read his autobiography too, which is called "I Dreamed I Was a Very Clean Tramp." And like, yeah, like that song was kind of meant as like a manifesto for like all he was doing as an artist, and just like Blank was kind of like fill in the blank. This generation doesn't have any purpose. Like the 60s failed. It didn't bring about any real change. We have to make our own future, which I thought was pretty interesting. He gets a bit more nihilistic with his art than I personally like to get in stuff I create, but it's always really interesting with what he makes with it.
It's hard for me to be nihilistic when I'm artistic, but I really enjoy seeing other people be nihilistic when they're being artistic.
Yeah. Interesting thing about like his whole band is like his lead guitarist was named Bob Quine, and he was like older than a lot of people in the band. He'd kind of like tried to get involved in music before, but was kind of rejected from a lot of it. He looked like an adjunct professor in that he was bald and wore like a tweed blazer on stage. But he would also get like mad at people and hit people with his guitar. And when Richard Hell and the Voidoids toured England opening for the Clash, he would get really mad at them for playing "I'm So Bored with the USA" because he felt like, oh, you're just having us as Americans open for you, and then you're slagging on us. And so it was pretty funny. But yeah, and then like Ivan Julian, their other guitarist, he was the pretty one. He was the younger one. He was the one who had been an apprentice to Jimi Hendrix for a little while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he learned a lot from him and like knew him personally and looked up to him. Ivan Julian was one of the few black people in the CBGB scene, and then their drummer, most thing that's really notable about him is when Tommy quit the Ramones, they replaced him with Marky, who is Mark Bell from Richard Hell and the Voidoids, because Mark Bell was sick of being in Richard Hell and the Voidoids because they didn't tour enough for Mark to make like a living, because Richard would get all strung out on heroin.
Well, yeah, it's hard to make a living when you're strung out on heroin.
It's hard to make a living when your boss is strung out on heroin.
Well, I mean, that depends. Does he keep his safe open?
Yeah. All of these people that we've talked about, if you read their autobiographies or the books about like where they came from, they all got robbed multiple times. Living in New York in the 70s while like high on everything you can think of. And then like, oh, look, this apartment is unlocked. Click.
So next one, Sonic Reducer by the Dead Boys. I really like the raw driving sound of the guitar. I really like the trippy intro, and overall I thought the song kind of gave me a vibe of, if it was slowed down, it could be a stoner rock or a desert rock song. Like I could see Queens of the Stone Age playing like a slower version of this song.
Yeah, this was my favorite individual track off of this side. This song is great. I have covered this song in an old band. I still know all the lyrics. The Dead Boys were cool. They were a New York, like CBGB's band, but they weren't from New York. They came from the great city of Cleveland, Ohio. This is the desolation of a Midwest that you're hearing right here.
Hello, Cleveland.
Yes. This song was left over from two of their members' previous band. Well, I guess they kind of technically two bands ago, because there was a version of the Dead Boys that didn't have all the exact same members called Frankenstein, which was more of a glam rock band that still did this song, that still the same lead singer, Stiv Bators, was in it. But before even Frankenstein, Their guitarist, Cheetah Chrome, and their drummer, Johnny Blitz, were a part of this band called Rocket from the Tombs in Cleveland, which had a number of other people who went on to form other bands. Most notably is that band's lead singer / organ and saxophone player went by the name of Crocus Bohemoth. But then, like in his next band, he just started going by his real name, which was David Thomas. And he was the lead singer to a band that was much more arty than street tough, like the Dead Boys. That was Per Ubu. And their other guitarist for Rocket from the Tombs was named Peter Laffner, who went on to become a founding member of Per Ubu, who appeared on their first 2 singles and then quit the band and then died at age 24 from trying to live like Lou Reed. Lou Reed didn't do as much substances as he publicly portrayed himself as doing, and that killed Peter Laffner, which is sad because Peter Laffner was a very talented guitarist and songwriter. But yeah, this was all before Dead Boys were a thing, but that song, Sonic Reducer, was a leftover song from Rocket from the Tombs, and it was one of their best songs, both for Rocket from the Tombs and the Dead Boys. It's just an amazing song that I feel like if you are from the desolation, the alienated desolation of the Midwest, something can really click with you, which also probably why if you slow it down, it sounds like the alienated desolation of the Nevada desert. The broken promises of the quote-unquote heartland is just in that, and just like the lyrics talk about, okay, I'm going to rise above this, but there's nothing in the music that indicates the person's going to rise above it. Just like this really cool, tough song, the weird sounds became kind of, I think it's interesting that they made it in there, because like that kind of weird feedbacky stuff wasn't something that was really in Rocket from the Tombs, but it became kind of what Per Ubu was known for, which I guess since David Thomas was technically one of the writers for this song, it makes sense that they kind of put it in. It was the one Rocket from the Tombs song that David Thomas told Cheetah Chrome, okay, you can cover anything that we did in Rocket from the Tombs, don't do Sonic Reducer. And then he went ahead and did Sonic Reducer. And so somehow there's still a Rocket from the Tombs reunion in the aughts, and they buried the hatchet, but I do think that's funny that that was the one he was supposed to save for Per Ubu. And Per Ubu did some other Rocket from the Tomb songs too, but it's just, yeah, really funny.
So speaking of desolate wastelands, the next song, Your Love is Like a Nuclear Waste, by, I forgot to, who was that by?
Tuff Darts. They are the band that I know the least about going in. Like, this is the one song on this compilation so far that it didn't have on another album. So far.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the silly, tongue-in-cheek kind of lyric, and it's kind of like they overused the bomb sound effect, but it didn't get old to me.
They overused it, but that made it funny. It was like it was like that Simpsons gag where Sideshow Bob keeps stepping into the rake.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the 5th time, you're like, okay, are they going to keep doing this? And then the 10th time, it's the best thing ever.
If my old band Megaton was still around, I think it'd be really funny if we'd covered that, because I could see us doing a really funny version of that.
Yeah, it was just a really fun song. It sounded more like what a lot of radio rock sounded like in the 70s than the rest of these, which isn't a bad thing. It just did. It was like more a straightforward rock song, but they just kind of upped the ironic stupidity quite a bit, which made it just so much fun.
Yeah, I love ironic stupidity.
Yeah.
Except when it's in politics.
Except when it's in politics, yeah.
Vermin Supreme.
Yeah.
Which, Vermin Supreme 2024, this podcast endorses Vermin Supreme.
Yes.
Make sure to brush your teeth. Especially since me and Dave both had teeth fall apart. And, that wouldn't have happened if Vermin Supreme was president.
No. Yeah, Vermin Supreme would have made sure that my teeth would have been good enough to not need a root canal.
Yep, and then you could have used your free pony to go to the dentist more often.
Yes.
So, next song, a Jimi Hendrix cover of Hey Joe by Patti Smith. Started out with a really cool, like, poetic vibe, and then it kind of, I don't know how to describe the song, because it had a really kind of strange atmosphere to it.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of like Dolly Parton if you put on beer goggles.
Yeah. This was an interesting song. This was like really early in her career. This one isn't always put on like her career retrospective things. So this one was one that I had wanted to have in my collection for a while, but didn't, because like the Rarities compilation I had the better known B-side, which was all original, and it's called Piss Factory. And so I had like Piss Factory burned onto my computer at that point, but not like the A-side to the single Hey Joe. This was before she started poaching members from other bands. So it was just like her and her guitarist and her piano player. So her guitarist at this time was like her best known collaborator, who has been with her in every incarnation of all the music she's done. His name is Lenny Kaye. He kind of was a writer who liked playing guitar. He's the guy who, before he started working with Patti Smith, he put out there's a famous like 60s psychedelic compilation called Nuggets. He compiled that.
Is that a reference?
Yeah, the title of this compilation is reference to Nuggets. And then then she recruited this piano player named Richard Soul because like at that point she didn't think she wanted to go like for a full band thing. So it's like, okay, the piano it can be both a percussive instrument and like a way to do melody. So just like all the instrumentation to this is just like psychedelic style guitar noodling and then like very percussive piano playing, and it's really cool as a result.
You pointed out that there wasn't drums or bass, and I did hear the percussive piano playing, and it took me a minute to realize that was a piano rather than like a bass drum hit.
Yeah. But yeah, this was before she started poaching members from other bands to form a full lineup, and which she got really successful and released Horses, which is one of the best albums from this era. But this was a very early sound of hers that she quickly moved past as she added more members, and so I think it's cool to choose to be what they include on this compilation, and I'm glad they did the lesser-known A-side because it's so hard to find in other places.
Yeah. I'm always an advocate for lesser-known but amazing B-sides to be brought to the forefront for everybody to enjoy, and which is, I suppose, it's probably one of the best parts of living in this digital era that we are, is we get to look that stuff up. But of course, at the same time, I kind of miss some of that hunting that I used to do to find like rare stuff like that.
Yeah, and then a weird connection this song has to my personal life lately is the poem she does at the beginning is about Patty Hearst, the heiress who was kidnapped by a black liberation group and like ended up joining them and robbing banks. I recently saw the classic 1990s John Waters film Serial Mom. Like, this wasn't the first time I'd seen it, but my local library just bought a copy, so it's like I will rewatch Serial Mom. I love John Waters, even though this was in the era after Divine had died. He still made good stuff, but Patty Hearst plays a bit part in it, which I think is great. Just like because John Waters loved casting people who were seen as like weird in his movies.
Well, I'd say overall that side one had a very good mix of different sounds, but at the same time, I thought it flowed really well.
Yeah.
I liked how each song kind of staggered the vibe. So you'd have one with more energy and then one that was a little more laid back, or then you'd have like a silly one. I think whoever put this compilation together put some thought into the song order.
Yeah, and I liked how they chose 6 songs from a scene that had like different tendencies, one to be more tough, one to be more arty, and it just did 3 and 3 for each of those. So, one thing that I also noticed is most of the songs, not all of them, but most of the songs across the whole thing have been released by Sire Records. Sire was a big label at the time that was like really taking a risk on punk bands. They had the Ramones, Talking Heads, bunch of stuff. So, Dead Boys, like I think. Like most of these, if they're not Sire, they're Elektra, or, they're owned by Warner Brothers. And this compilation was put out by Rhino, who's owned by Warner Brothers. And while not everything on here is like owned by Warner Brothers, I think they tended to draw from those just because it was cheaper to license to make the compilation. And it works as a whole.
Yeah. So going into side 2, are we going to have a different vibe completely, or is it going to be kind of the same where they stagger different acts?
Side 2 is interesting in that it seems consistent at first, and that it's all like slightly later, like English bands. Like it doesn't have like the very first wave of English bands on it, like the Sex Pistols, the Damned, the Clash. It has the ones that came like just slightly after that for the most part. It dips a little bit into post-punk, but like it kind of goes all over the place. Well, I guess the Stranglers, the first band on it, were around at the same time as those bands, but they were notably different in that they had an organ player, and unlike most British punk bands, some of their members had facial hair. They were also like slightly older too, so they could grow facial hair. But yeah, like other than that, it's bands that came just like slightly later, and for the most part, they're all English bands. The last one's a little different in that it's an earlier kind of power pop glam band from San Francisco that is notable for touring with the Damned at some point. So spiritually, it belongs there, but it's not the exact same thing as the rest.
I noted earlier in the week that you and me listen to a lot of bands from the UK.
Yeah, there's been times when I listen to more UK bands than American bands. I don't think that's true right now, but at times it has been true for me.
After reading about Black Sabbath coming up in the desolate industrial town of Birmingham that was like half bombed out, I'm like, as a Midwestern boy, I had a lot to relate to on that, because I've had shitty industrial jobs. I had moments where I didn't ever feel like I'd be able to find a job that I was good at, which all the Sabbath guys thought. So I feel like probably the reason we relate so much to a lot of those guys from the UK is they sing a lot about their struggles and poverty. And I know both you and I have dealt with that on different levels.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the things I really do appreciate about punk. Like, a lot of it saw itself as a pushback to prog, in which we've talked about how that's a little messier, but like there isn't a sense with prog rock that and glam rock and like a lot of the stuff that had come like in the UK especially, but like also in the US right before punk, was there was a kind of abstraction of like away from people's everyday lives. And so like while everyone was kind of dealing with like economic hardships, some people didn't want to hear songs about doing drugs in space, as Jonathan Richman once put it. And so like it was just like,
I want to hear all songs about that.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic. I disagree. I love Jonathan Richman, but I disagree with him that that's not what rock and roll is about. But, you know, like, it can't be all rock and roll is about. And so, like, I kind of like the back and forth where things develop in one direction for a while, and then there's a pushback, and some people who do the pushback don't like the original. I'm still going to like both. Yeah.
I've heard criticisms of Genesis because they're high society individuals, kind of, and I know a lot of rock bands look down on them because of that, and I understand it, but man, they made some great music, didn't they?
They did. Yeah, well, and then it's like a lot of the pushback against synthesizers from like early punk bands was because they couldn't afford it. Like once they started being able to afford synthesizers, there's a lot of synthesizers in punk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, they probably heard the Diano album and went, none of that.
Yeah.
Get that away from my band.
Yeah.
Well, all right, let's move on to side 2. Rolling.
Yeah. All right, that was
a motherfucking chainsaw.
What? Limp Bizkit might have worked better if it was 2 different vocalists trading parts rather than a bunch of overdubs, honestly. Anyway, that is nothing to do with what we just listened to. That's a different band. Anyway, yeah. Steve, what do you think of side 2?
I really liked side 2. It had some very interesting things in it that I wasn't expecting. Like we'll dive right into the first song.
Yeah.
Get a Grip on Yourself by the Stranglers. Like the second you put that on, I'm like, I love this song.
That song's amazing. That band's amazing. Love them.
Yeah, the keyboard playing on that was just amazing. Like the arpeggiated synth. Is it arpeggiated or was he actually playing?
He was actually playing it.
Holy shit!
You can see video of him doing that live. Yeah,
because I thought I was like, yeah, is this arpeggiated? Because yeah, it almost sounds like yeah, it's like something you'd hear in like an old school 8 or 16-bit video game. I think it sounds like the keyboard he was using might have had something in common with a lot of what the computers and game consoles were using at the time.
Yeah.
Like there were multiple times where I'm like, he was doing some keyboard parts and I'm like, it sounds like something you'd hear in like, I don't know, a boss battle in Phantasy Star or something.
Yeah. They came out of like the English pub rock scene before doing like the punk stuff. So, you know, like really technically proficient bar bands doing like some kind of bluesy stuff, but they weren't really part of like the whole like heavy metal scene that was like Black Sabbath that was coming up. They were doing more songs that you could bring a date to dance to than a lot of like the metal stuff was. No offense.
Well,
yeah.
It's funny because back when Black Sabbath was Earth, like something like that actually happened is they booked a band called Earth and then they showed up and they were expecting like, yeah, something you could dance to. And then they go and play Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath. And
yeah, nice. But yeah, they were a really good band. They also had they were incredibly successful in like the charting sense in like the later 70s into the 80s. Like they had like in the UK a lot of like top 40 hits. Which is really funny because like they had 2 lead singers. The one that was on that one was Hugh Cornwell, and then the other, who was the guitar player, and the other one was the bass player, Jean-Jacques Brunel. And they were both just like incredibly like nasty misanthropic dudes who would like start needless beefs, especially Jean Jacques, with other bands, and like all their lyrics were like about doing heroin and hating people. And
So they're kind of like the Eminem of their day.
they kind of were. Like, they were kind of controversial. Some of their stuff veers into misogyny, which they say was ironic, but it doesn't communicate as ironic all the time. So yeah, they're still a great band. There's just like, I get why some people think they're a little too nasty, because they could be. The keyboard player, though, really good. Dave Greenfield. I'm going to make you depressed now. He died in May of 2020 of the coronavirus.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. He was the first like famous to me person that died of COVID that made me sad.
Yeah,
there were a few.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. There's the coronavirus death is going to connect to someone on the next side too. So have fun with that conversation. We'll see that one get throttled if we try to make it into a clip.
Just like when I used the shit emoji and
Yeah.
we got 50 views on it.
Yeah.
We usually get like between 400 and 500 views on our shorts, and that one just, nope, poop emoji, too offensive.
Yep. Yeah, and the drummer was named Jet Black, which he was a good drummer. I just don't have much to say about him, because other than like his stage name was good, and he had a full beard, and Dave Greenfield had a mustache, which made them different from other punk bands because they were older.
So next one, My Baby Does Good Sculptures by the Rezillos.
Yeah, Scottish band. I really like this song. This song's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it had a really cool old school rock and roll vibe.
Yeah.
I found that really enjoyable.
Yeah, as a band, they were into kind of like doing like the old school like 50s rock and roll, or like calling back to like the 70s glam with like the weird costumes that had a lot of like vinyl and leather to them. Maybe we'll look up a video of them at some point, of them just like dancing around stage with their weird sunglasses. One thing that's notable about them is their guitarist, after they broke up, went on to join the Human League when they were falling apart, and had to learn synthesizer on the spot, basically. And the Human League were falling apart at that point because their two songwriters had quit the band. And then this guy came in and helped the Human League write the biggest hit of their career with Don't You Want Me? And from an instrument he'd just learned how to play. So he was like a pretty good songwriter. Like, he was pretty talented as a musician.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I just imagine it's like when I was reading about Ozzy learning the keyboard parts for Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and oh wait, somebody might correct us anyway.
We'll just say specifically what song on that album we're talking about, or which two songs. Then they can't correct us.
But yeah, like you mentioned, it was kind of amateurish. So I'm just imagining that somebody just like kind of figuring it out the same way, just kind of seeing what works.
Seeing what works, and then do. Yeah, but yeah, the guitar playing on that's really good. Like, he was a good guitar player, clearly influenced a lot by like Mick Ronson, who was like the Ziggy Stardust era guitarist for Bowie. I liked how choppy a lot of the guitar was, but while the bass was just going for a fucking walk.
Next one, Suspect Device by Stiff Little Fingers. I didn't have much notes about it, just beyond that it had a really cool old school vibe.
Yeah, that one was the most straightforward punk-sounding song on this whole side. Stiff Little Fingers is a band that I've seen live. Their lead singer is named Jake Burns, and he's still going. Original members come and go. The original bass player was, I think, is still in the band, but was definitely in the band when I saw it. But yeah, they are a really good band. They come from Northern Ireland. About half of their songs are about the Troubles, and the other half are about frustration with being young and struggling to make a name for yourself. This one is kind of both. It's definitely leans more on the Troubles side.
Hashtag Irish reunification of 2024.
Yes. I think they live in Chicago now, but they were definitely in Northern Ireland at the time. Like, their other big song off this album was called Alternative Ulster, which is also about wanting Ireland to be free. But yeah, Suspect Device has so many great lyrics that I love. This was the single mix, which I like the album mix better because it's a little less clean, but it also contains a word I like better than sod, which is fuck. So like at the beginning where it's like, and make sure we get sod all on the album, it's fuck all, and it's delivered with a little more venom too, because it's what he wants to be singing at that part. That's just a great song. There's a lot of lyrics that I come back to when certain things happen. Like, great line I like in that is, they take away our freedom in the name of liberty. When every time we see like god awful fascist moms name themselves Moms for Liberty or some bullshit like that, while they're trying to censor what other people read, not just their own kids. But hey, here's a hot take. People shouldn't censor what their own kids read. Kids are autonomous beings who have a right to make their minds up for themselves.
I completely agree, Dave.
We shouldn't just accept people being tyrants in their own homes. Their kids deserve better than to be raised by these bullshit Nazis.
It kind of reminds me of the way Frank Zappa approached the Congress when they were trying to censor music and stuff. Even stuff that he didn't like himself, he thought that it should be free for anybody to access.
Yeah, people need to make up their minds for themselves, not have their mom, who's terrified of trans people for no real reason, get to decide what everyone else gets to read, gets to watch, gets to listen to.
And at the same time, if you're that kind of parent, your kids are going to fucking hate you.
Yeah.
And they're going to cut you out of their lives the second they can. So, come on.
Yeah.
Is it really? Come on.
That's a bit of a tangent because like what he was writing about was like the English government talking about increasing police presence in Northern Ireland because it was for liberty, even though they were curtailing people's freedoms. It's a great song. I also kind of like how through most of it's, don't believe them, don't be bitten twice. But by the end, it's don't believe us, question everything you're told. It's like they have a lot of songs like, hey, we're not role models. Don't do something just because we say something. Figure it out for yourself, which is one of the things I've always really liked. It's not just punk that has done that. I really like bands that don't see themselves as thought leaders. It's not didactic. It's them writing about their own experience, and if they comment on a social issue, so be it. But, figure it out for yourself.
Plenty of times I've gotten to know my heroes and my thought leaders, and a lot of times they just end up disappointing you in some way or another. So there's nothing wrong with being inspired by somebody like that. Just don't look at them like they're some, I don't know, infallible individual that does, all of their opinions are perfect. There's plenty of examples of socially conscious bands that are very socially conscious in one way, but might not be in another way. And it's okay to pick and choose, I suppose. It's like you shouldn't pick and choose out of the Bible. But
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was about to say, after we made all those statements, this is the same day that the Danny Joe Brown episode is airing, so all of our boomer fans we're about to get are going to hear that and then drop us.
Yes. Die mad.
Or, maybe listen to what we have to
Yeah.
say, and, that'd be cool. What was the next one? I lost track.
The next one was Warsaw by Joy Division.
Oh, yeah. So I recognized it as Joy Division, but I thought it had a lot more of a primitive sound than I was used to. So I turned to Dave and I was like, this is an early one, isn't it? And he confirmed it. So
Yeah. I think this might have been the first thing they ever kind of released. It is the first track on their Substance compilation, which takes all of their singles and split appearances that didn't end up on their first album. And they didn't like putting songs on multiple albums. So there's some of their most essential songs are on this compilation. As a result. This is the very first one. This one is them kind of at their edgiest in that, okay, they were not Nazis, they were not fascists, but the name Joy Division was referring to the prisoners who the concentration camp guards would make serve as prostitutes for them. They would say that they were doing this because they were identifying with the victims. It's still tasteless. I still like them as a band. It's still tasteless.
That's pretty dark.
Yeah.
But wow.
Yeah. And this song is called Warsaw. It is about Rudolf Hess, who was the deputy Führer who tried to, behind Hitler's back, negotiate a peace treaty with the UK, but then got taken prisoner. That is a valid topic for a song. But when your name is already Joy Division, that's it's just a little dark, a little edgy. Yeah. Like I said, they weren't fascists. They've gone out of their way to say they're not fascists and that they were, in a way, trying to identify with the victims. It's just they were young 20-somethings who had undiagnosed mental illnesses who were kind of playing in a dark, edgy space and probably crossed a few lines here and there.
Yeah, and that happened a lot more back then. And I don't know, I have less of a problem with that group doing it, especially if you know their intentions more than, say, I don't know, we used to have this local band that used to go on stage and do Heil Hitlers, and our friend of the podcast, Adam, who runs the venue they were at, he stopped their set in the middle of it and told them none of that shit. Yeah. So,
and the way they counted off at the beginning, the 3, 5, 0, 1, 2, 5, go. That was Hess's prisoner of war serial number when Britain captured him.
That story behind him just going batshit and flying to Britain is, I don't know, one of the funniest things to come out of the Nazis, I think.
Yeah, and he was like especially paranoid for a Nazi, and he was anti-Semitic in a way that Nazis in general weren't, because like he thought that the Jews were mind controlling both Hitler and Churchill to fight each other, so that the Soviets would come out as the winner. That's like, that is an unhinged level of nonsense. Like, that is anti-Semitic, but not in the exact same way that Hitler was. So yeah,
that was an interesting case. It's odd that he fled right before all of the worst things happened, so he didn't get to be executed, but he had to spend the rest of his life in a jail, like pretty much by himself after a certain point.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and then he got to like 93 or whatever. I forget the exact age, but he was in his 90s and just, all right, kill myself.
Yeah. He made it that far, and he tried to kill himself when he was younger and failed, but yeah, it's just like, made it that far, yeah.
I don't know, I think I would have stuck it out at that point, but...
Yeah, he is an interesting person who did something really weird. A subject for a song. Joy Division were a little too edgy for their own good, like especially early on.
Well, fuck Hess and fuck his eyebrows.
Yes.
The next song, Tom Robinson Band. Oh, I forgot to note the song title. What was that one?
2468 Motorway.
Yeah, so this one had a really dancey vibe. Like, I don't know if I'd say disco, but it almost had that same, like, bouncy groove that a disco has, like, especially in the bass. Something you definitely want to like get up and move to.
Yeah.
And the sound overall was a surprise to me because I didn't hear much punk in this one.
Yeah, it was Tom Robinson's band's like first big hit, first song they released as a single. It was definitely part of the punk group. Like, I think Tom Robinson had been more, like the Stranglers had been more part of like the pub rock movement beforehand.
The pug rock music?
Pug rock movement. He is interesting. He is not like a nihilistic misanthrope like the Stranglers were. He was very much an activist. You don't hear that from this song, but like the first album that he put out after this was called Power in the Darkness, and like the lead track for that was called Up Against the Wall. He and Stiff Little Fingers like toured a lot together. They were, as like the more politically active bands on this side, that like he was like big into activism. His other big song, which he didn't put on his first album like this one because he's like, oh, we already released it as singles, which he later acknowledged was a mistake. This song and this other song I'm about to mention definitely belonged on the first album, and when they released that album in the States, they included them in some other tracks on like a bonus 12-inch. But yeah, the other song that he did was called Glad to Be Gay, and it was about the way the British press and politicians and police would just go after gay people and repress them and censor them. Robinson himself was gay, which I kind of think the disco influence might be that a little bit, because he was also going to clubs to dance and stuff like that. Yeah. So that probably crept into his music some.
So, fun fact, and this is veering into a completely different territory, but I was reading an interview from Varg from Burzum.
Oh, God.
And
actual Nazi this time, yeah.
And while he was making his early Burzum albums, the Colts, brutal Burzum albums, at the same time he would get dressed up and go to like Euro dance clubs to get laid. And it's so funny to try to think about Varg trying to get laid, first of all.
Yeah.
And Varg dancing to music. And third, I wonder how much that influenced Burzum.
I wonder, yeah. What you hear creeps in some ways. Like,
well, he did actually do, while he was in jail, he did like ambient music that was all electronic. So,
yeah.
I mean, fuck him, but
yeah, fuck him.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is. I once pirated a copy of the role-playing game rulebook he wrote because I was curious, and it was god-awful. But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, Tom Robinson Band was like, they were like very politically active. They, even though they didn't sound like as punk as some of the others, they were definitely considered part of the scene, mainly because like they had the same kind of radical politics of bands like Stiff Little Fingers and The Clash and Gang of Four, and they were part of the whole Rock Against Racism festival from the get-go. They were just a really cool band, and I will definitely talk more about them when I get their album in the mail, and we'll talk about that on the podcast.
Yeah, and I liked this song a lot, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, one little fact that I will bring up, like that song is about, like driving home from a late night gig as the sun's coming up, and it's really cool. It's like his least political song ever, but he does sneak like the 2 4 6 8 3 5 7 9 chants in the chorus. He took that from a gay liberation chant, which is 2 4 6 8. Gay is twice as good as straight. 3 5 7 9. Lesbians are mighty fine. So he was sneaking some radical politics into his nice driving song, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, I was into it till he dragged his politics in.
Yeah, that's that one. And now, last track, Shake Some Action by the Flamin Groovies.
Yeah, it had some new wave influence on it that I really liked, especially on the keyboard.
Yeah, and then it had like a lot of guitars. They were a San Francisco band, while the rest of these are British. Most of them different parts of Britain. Like there's only like 2 London bands on this side.
Yeah, it definitely stuck out like a sore thumb compared to the other ones. But it was definitely a fine song.
I just love the energetic. I love the vocal harmonies, and I like how often the lead singer just, I don't know if it was the lead singer or just anyone else who was in the room just screaming, "Woo!" Just like they were all having the best time of their lives recording it, or at least that's what they communicated. Watch, after I say that, I'm going to find out that they were like getting in fist fights with each other between takes. But yeah.
Well, when a band's having fun, a lot of times you can actually like tell. I remember when the latest Metallica single came out, like I forget who it was, but somebody was just like, "Wow, they actually sound like they're having fun."
They like playing music in the same room again. What happened?
But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed that side. I don't think it was as strong as the first side, but all the songs all held up overall, if that makes sense. The flow of it was really good. I liked the flow of the first side a little better, probably just because the last song kind of stuck out, and there's only so much you can do about that on a compilation. But
yeah, this side also, didn't have, like, I mean, Joy Division is a huge band and everyone knows them, and then the Stranglers had all of their hits, but this one doesn't have like the big iconic bands that everyone remembers, like the Ramones and Patti Smith. Yeah. This one that got a little more obscure, which I think if you're doing a deep dive on a genre, like, start with the better known stuff and then find some more hidden gems is a good way to go about it.
Yeah, and I would say my favorite song on that side would be Get a Grip on Yourself by the Stranglers. That song went so fucking hard.
Yeah, that song's great. That might be my favorite individual song on the whole thing. Like, it's either that or Sonic Producer or...
Yeah, I'm actually thinking right now, like, what do I like better, Sonic Producer or that one? I think the Strangler song beats out Sonic Producer.
I also like a band calling themselves the Stranglers, naming one of their early singles "Get a Grip on Yourself."
But Tom Robinson Band, runner-up for that side.
Yeah.
That was a great song. So, all right, what do we got to look forward to on the next side?
Next side, we're going to dip a little bit the LA scenes. We're going to do kind of one of the more like rock and roll LA bands on here, and then one of the more hardcore bands on here. But then we're also going to get kind of into like post-punk. We're going to get into someone who is an alum of one of the proto-punk bands doing a sad song. All of these kind of move around all over the place for years, but it's like you can think side one is like the early years, like the dive bar years with CBGBs. Side two, you can kind of see more bands getting in on it and like new bands getting in on it. You could call like maybe side 176, side 2 77. You could call side 3 78 in that sense. This is as things are starting to move into post-punk, which is funny that this isn't the side with Joy Division, but yeah, this is you can see this one as kind of a progression, and this goes to both sides of the Atlantic almost evenly across the board. It's 5 songs, so it's an odd number, but it's 2 LA bands, a New York solo artist, and 2 very different UK bands.
Flip it.
So yeah, I was wrong when describing the band. Like, I had forgotten some details and thought, oh yeah, Pretenders, they sound like an LA band. They are not. They were mostly an English band, except their lead singer, who is from Akron, Ohio. Behold, the desolation of the Midwest rears its head again.
You know who else is from Akron, Ohio?
Devo.
You know who else is from Akron, Ohio?
Who?
Tim Ripper Owens, who filled in for Judas Priest when Halford left for a couple of years.
Oh, okay. British by way of Akron, Ohio.
Yeah, he's kind of a jackass, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Wait by the Pretenders. I really love the gravitas of her delivery. Kind of reminded me of Joan Jett. And yeah, great song.
Yeah.
Covered by Metallica.
Yeah. Good song, great band. I really like their album. We'll do their whole first album at some point later. So, like, just a solid rock and roll band, all really good at what they do, really good at having their guitars play off of each other. 10 out of 10.
Next one, You Can't Put Your Arms Around a Memory by Johnny Thunder. I thought it sounded like a 60s song is melting.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, and you told me I would know who this is, and I said Lou Reed, and you said close.
Yes. So, you know who the New York Dolls are, of course.
Yeah.
He was one of their guitarists.
Ah.
Yeah, he was the one who did the most heroin out of all of them. After the New York Dolls broke up, he started another band called the Heartbreakers, concurrently to Tom Petty starting Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So even though Johnny Thunder's band is just the Heartbreakers, it will often get called Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreaker. But he was like one of the lead singers, which Richard held at a brief stint in the Heartbreakers as the bass player / one of the lead singers between television and the Voidoids. But like he and Johnny Thunders didn't see eye to eye on how to take the band even more than he didn't see with Tom Verlaine. But yeah, Johnny Thunders is one of the legendarily hedonistic dying young rock stars. This song sounds like a 60s song melting. This was him at his more self-aware. You can't put your arms around a memory. His life was kind of falling apart by the point he was doing solo stuff. This was after the Heartbreakers had all split up.
So did Tom Petty and Johnny Thunder ever like get together and have a thing about the name, and they were both like, "I won't back down"?
I mean, probably. Like, I just read Debbie Harry's autobiography, and at different points she mentions playing both with the Heartbreakers, as in Johnny Thunders, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and not like them being on stage together, but like they're running in the same circles, and similar bands were opening for them, so they had to have been aware of each other.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever met, but
they probably thought their scenes probably wouldn't cross. So
yeah, well, both of their scenes could fit Blondie. So
yeah, well, that's Blondie for you, isn't it?
Yeah, they were able to move from punk to mainstream rock and pop and back like pretty easily without really losing their footing in the other.
Yeah,
so,
very hard thing to pull off. Homicide 999.
999. This is a British band, obviously, because why would an American band name themselves 999? An American band would name themselves 991.
Well, 999 is just 666 upside down.
Yes.
So,
well, this is definitely referring to the emergency telephone number.
Well, I guess that means the British emergency telephone number is evil upside down.
Well, Britain is evil.
That's true. I like how Robert Evans describes them as slow Nazis.
Yeah.
So, Homicide 999. I put that. I like the contrast of the crunchy rhythm guitar, along with the chorusy lead guitar. The bass line was just absolutely solid overall with the rhythm section, and the lead break I thought was really cool.
Yeah, they were a London punk band. They started in '76, so they were like the early start of all this. Just took them a while to get something recorded. So they were playing alongside like the Clash and the Sex Pistols before they were big.
Yeah.
So they're just a really solid band that most of their discography isn't remembered probably as much as it should be. Just yeah.
A lot of bands like that.
Yeah.
Next one, Love Like Anthrax, Gang of Four.
Favorite song on the album, I think, actually. You would definitely not doubt this if I told you, but like to how I write music, personally, this one's the most influential to what I did.
Oh, yeah, I can hear that all over it.
Just like the intro that's nothing but guitar feedback for a while, and then like the really kind of funky bass and drums come in, just like, and the really like tight playing on both of them, and then like the guitar player and the lead singer then just like delivering their vocals at the same time and saying different things.
Somehow worked.
Yeah, somehow worked. And then they will sync up at random points when saying things like, "I'm feeling like a beetle on its back."
It kind of reminded me of William Shatner's cover of Common People, because there's a part where he's just speaking, but the singer is singing like the same line, and they don't sync up, but I still think it kind of works.
Yeah.
So I kind of noticed that, and it was kind of a mind fuck, but in a way that I really liked, because I feel like ADHD brain just was able to kind of separate all of the parts somehow. I can see how it would drive like somebody with like a normal brain mad, but overall I really enjoyed how abrasive and untraditional it was.
Yeah, I read an interview with the guitar player Andy Gill once in a book by Simon Reynolds, I think called Rip It Up and Start Again, which was just a bunch of interviews with different post-punk people, and one of the sets of lyrics in that is like more like a straightforward love song, and then the other's kind of like depressing breakup stuff. It's really good. The reason why they were called Gang of Four was they saw an article in the paper about the Gang of Four, like the faction in Chinese politics at the time. More conservative elements within the CCP were trying to scapegoat for everything that had failed for the Cultural Revolution, which, the people in the Gang of Four did some things that they probably shouldn't have, but like to put it all on their feet wasn't fair and that kind of thing. But, like they weren't like Gang of Four itself wasn't a Maoist band, although they were definitely communists. They were informed more though by things like the Situationalist International type thing.
Yeah.
Like their albums, especially like their first one, Entertainment, but their other ones, they have, well, their whole thing was like the personals to the political. So they would like have materialist Marxist love songs on their album. And like, they're really good. Like some of my favorite songs of theirs are about watching the news and talking about how weird it is to see a corpse on the TV, just like in the news, like during the invasion of the Falkland Islands type stuff. They had a song about buying condoms from like a Marxist materialist perspective. They had, they're just a great band. I love everything about them.
It sounds like some of the lefty YouTube channels that I follow, but in song form.
It really is. And then they had a song called Not for Great Men, which is about taking down the great men theory of history, and the condom song was called At Home He's a Tourist. It's a song about, like how people are alienated from their own lives under capitalism. It's a really cool song.
Oh, the thing I wrote an entire album about?
Yeah. They also had a song that almost sounds like a straightforward love song called breakup song called Damaged Goods. Yeah, they're just, I'm looking forward to when I show you just that whole album. It's really good.
I mean, based off even that description alone, I'm just absolutely intrigued. It sounds like it'd be right up my alley.
Yeah, and then just like the funky bass line, and to tie it back to another thing, like when that bass player kind of quit, like at the beginning of their U.S. tour without setting up a replacement, when they brought in Busta Jones. So back to the Talking Heads
friend of the
episode.
pod,
Yeah,
Busta Jones. I just edited out some YouTube shorts where you were talking about him. So rest in peace, buddy.
Yeah.
And then last song, Lexicon Devil by the Germs. Just a fun punk song. Obviously has the legendary Pat Smear in the band, who I know from the Foo Fighters.
And Nirvana. Their lead singer was an interesting guy. His name was Darby Crash. I don't remember his real name. But he was like a young, really charismatic, really kind of nihilistic and scary guy. Like he was a closeted gay guy who got obsessed with the idea of like mind control and was kind of trying to start the band as a cult. This song, Lexicon Devil, is another. Darby Crash was not a Nazi. However, this song's about Hitler. The song is like about Hitler in the sense that it's intrigued about the idea of getting people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise. This is part of his cult mind control obsession. And like the Germs logo is like this blue circle.
Yeah.
What that is, that's a cigarette burn. Like he would convince people to like mark themselves as fans of the band by burning their arms with cigarettes. Weird guy. And he died way too young and did way too many substances. Like if you look up live videos of them, he was out of control. This is a give yourself something to live for other than inflicting your pain on other people didactic moment on the podcast. But yeah, like I do like their album. It's just they cross some lines.
Yeah, well, it happens, especially when you're trying to make attention for yourself in music, and some of the easiest things you can do are cheesy shock tactics. I mean, the Satanic Panic's a pretty good demonstration of that.
Yeah, I do think it's funny though. Like my old band definitely don't endorse the ideas of the song, but we did cover that song. It doesn't directly say it's about Hitler though. I guess what we were thinking, but yeah.
Well, it reminds me of my former Megaton bandmate Rob would tell me that when he was surfing around on the Air Force Wikipedia, they would always play like 5 Degrees to Hitler with the Air Force Wikipedia.
Oh, you can do Hitler roulette with Wikipedia. Like if you hit random articles, you can get to an article about like the main article about Hitler within 5.
Oh, it's super easy.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you press a country name, you could just press the country name and go to like relations and then go to Germany.
Yeah. So yeah, like how I did it is I hit random article. It gave me special effects of the Lord of the Rings movies. I clicked on New Zealand. I clicked on the UK. Oh, look.
Oh, let's see. Let's see how fast we can get to Hitler.
Random article.
All right, we got Miss Otis Regrets. It's a song about a lynching of a society woman after she murders her unfaithful lover.
Huh.
That sounds interesting. Well, let's see what we
I
got
like
here.
that kind of music.
London. Luftwaffe.
I don't think
Adolf Hitler.
Yeah. Once you click Luftwaffe, like that's
What was that, 3?
Yeah.
And on today's game of 3 Degrees to Hitler.
All right. So yeah. That was that.
That was side 3 with a bonus game of find Hitler in Wikipedia.
Yes.
He's staring at me.
Yeah, close that. I don't want him looking at us while we record. Jesus.
We'll go back to Miss Otis Regrets, because that
sounds
sounds like a really cool song.
Yeah. All right, so we have one last side, and then we are going to wrap up.
All right, and we're definitely not just going to take a break and wait for Pete to come and do a different album and then do the last side.
Yes, but this side is real weird. It has like a mix of like hardcore and cowpunk.
Oh, nice. So we'll get some. I'm familiar with Hank 3, so probably some of that in the mix there.
You'll see, or you'll look at the back of the sleeve. But yeah, yeah.
All right, flip it good.
Doo-doo-doo.
Hey, there's a band noise.
These big serious poets, they were the ones who were going to be financially successful.
Surprise number 4 guess.
What's up? So that was side 4. What did you think of it, Steve?
I think as far as all of the sides go, this was probably my least favorite. I think I connected with this one the least for some reason, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it. I thought it had a lot of really good songs on this side. I feel like the other ones had things I was more interested in.
Yes, I can see that. I kind of had a similar reaction, especially at first. But what did you think about it? Surprise, heard my Don Nosferatu?
Oh, am I Don Nosferatu again?
Or whatever you choose to be.
I think, hi, this is T.S. Eliot.
and you're Irish for the hardcore and cowpunk side.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you your fucking cowboy money. Anyway,
yeah.
All right, so that was my first time hearing Flesh Eaters. I was expecting, I guess, more what I'm familiar with as punk rock. It wasn't bad, though. I did like how it was like kind of like garage rock playing without garage rock production. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know, and I like how the sax really added to it.
Yeah.
I really like the crazy saxophone on this one. It made it really interesting, and I wasn't able to predict where it was going to go, and I really like that freeform style of thing. And it really reminded me of the scene in Star Trek Enterprise where T'Pol discovered jazz music for the first time, and they showed her like kind of tripping out, and you know, she's a Vulcan, so I think Vulcans and jazz music probably are a weird combination. So
but yeah,
that's what that reminded me of, Enterprise. So it's been a long road.
Yeah, Flesh Eaters, they were an LA band. John Doe and DJ Bonebreak from the band X were both in it for a while, I think kind of as a fun way to play, you know, like 50s style garage rock and roll. And then when X became successful, Flesh Eaters kind of did their own thing.
Well, present, because I think Chris, it says on the name of Chris, not Pedersen, but
Chris DeJardin.
DeJardin,
Yeah.
So I think he actually had more, he was less, I guess, known as a musician and more, because I think he was a writer, maybe for Slash magazine, something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe he worked with Kickboy Face, if I remember right. But this is going off things that I haven't read about for years, so this is old memories.
Yeah. Books I have read on the topic a decade ago.
Yeah. Yep. I think he was maybe a journalist of some sort.
I think so. A journalist, maybe like a poet or an essayist, something like that. Yeah. And then I like this song. I like this band.
That was my favorite one off of this side was the opener.
I like I like the slow creepiness it has at the beginning, and then just the unhinged like sax and xylophone stuff it has going through the whole thing. I've put this song on Halloween mixes before, as well as another song off the album called Divine Horseman, which is about Satan.
And as we know, this podcast endorses Satan.
Yes.
That was the first short I made out of this podcast, and it bombed.
Well, just to be clear, I, T.S.O. Eliot, and really any of my alternate personalities are just not into religion, and that includes Satanism.
What about Satanism?
Nope. It's a religion. I'm not into it. Flying Spaghetti Monster? Fuck off. Not into you either.
That one's a really annoying religion, too.
What about George Carlin's worship of the sun, but praying to Joe Pesci?
You know, that was pure satire, so I can go with that.
There we go. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Yep. Flying Spaghetti Monster people are a little bit too serious for something that should be satire.
Yeah. Same thing with the Church of the Subgenius, really, but that is a whole tangent. But yeah.
Oy vey.
For me, I'm going to join the Cult of Reason and chop off people's heads, so...
Oh, okay, sure. You go for that. You try to revive the French Revolution fake religion.
Well, that's why I wrote Cult of Reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, next track was Sex Beat by the Gun Club. That was my favorite track on this side. Just kick-ass song.
It is. Seriously, I probably didn't hear it for the first time until maybe like 5 years ago. But yeah, it is just a fucking it just socks you right in the face.
Yeah, and I remember I got really into the Gun Club around the time my favorite punk bar was closing down, and this album was in their jukebox, and so I would play this album a lot when I was there. Brothers Lounge, rest in peace. And so I associate this song a lot with Brothers Lounge too, but it's also just a kick-ass song, just great guitar work. The Gun Club as a band were pretty awesome. They're kind of in that whole cowpunk thing. Their other guitarist briefly joined the Cramps and then also briefly joined Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, so they're part of like all like that whole psychobilly / creepy Americana influenced post-punk.
Well, actually, I think he was with the Cramps for like a fair amount of time, like not just a short time, I mean like 5 or 6 years probably.
Something like that. Like he was after their original second guitarist quit, he was the one that joined in like the 80s.
Yeah, he actually might have been in the majority of the 80s. You're talking about Kid Congo, right?
Yeah, Kid Congo Powers, yeah.
The only thing I really put down is I like the surf rock vibe that it kind of had. But yeah, overall, it's definitely a kick-ass song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Lee Pierce was the guitar player and singer on that, just like the way him and Kid Congo Powers just played off of each other for the guitar is just awesome. And then just there's nothing that just makes me want to, just like point up in the air like, sex beat, go!
Yeah. Unfortunately, he decided he wanted to try and live life like Lou Reed, and his body couldn't handle it.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me that one.
Yeah, I was talking about someone else. There are quite a few people in the punk scene that happened with. Who,
you might have been the person who described Jeffrey Lee Pierce that way.
Oh, no, that was Peter Laffner I was talking about, like, that way. Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? Maybe I'm just flat out wrong. But he is dead, so.
He is dead.
Maybe.
And then, next track was I Love Living in the City by Fear. We're going kind of from the cowpunk to the hardcore here.
Fear is a band that I've been familiar with for a long time because Megadeth used to be my favorite band, and Dave Mustaine had a side project with Lee Ving called MD45. That album has 2 versions.
Yeah.
One with Lee Ving on vocals. It's worth listening to, I think. It's not great, but it's interesting, which is like a lot of things that I bring onto this podcast, so we'll probably do that one someday. The other one, Dave Mustaine redid the vocals and took out Lee Ving's harmonica and replaced it with guitar. And let's just say with mixed results.
So, all right, so this song was actually the first song I ever heard from Fear. And we're going back 30 years now. Because after getting into punk with Offspring and Green Day, I found this compilation called Faster and Louder Hardcore Punk Volume 2. And a lot of great bands on it, including this track right here. And it just resonated right away with me. So I've always been a huge fan of this song.
Yeah, it's a good song. I like his vocals. I like the way he sings. I like how he goes from like the tough guy raspy voice to just getting really melodic at times, like in the chorus. Mm-hmm. My favorite song by Fear is New York's All Right If You Like Saxophones, largely because of the performance they did at Saturday Night Live that got them banned from the show forever.
Yeah, I heard about that.
The footage is pretty fun too.
Yeah. If you have not seen that footage, dear listener, look it up and watch it. Look up Fear SNL. It's a classic. Yeah, next track was a song that I think everyone here knows, which is Skulls by the Misfits.
Yeah, not much. Kind of like the opening one with the Ramones. Not really much to say about this one, except it's awesome.
Yeah, it's an awesome song. And it's only in my top 10 Misfits songs. So it's a great song. But they've had so many great songs, it's really hard to pick one. It's a good choice to put on the compilation. But yeah, that's they're the iconic horror punk band, and this is one of their many, many great songs. So yeah.
And I guess I like it though because it is one of their great songs. They have so many great songs, like you said. But it's not, like I said, it's probably maybe 10 or 15 back. So, there's a lot of other songs that you would think that they'd go for first. So I really appreciate that they dug a little bit deeper on that one.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, look, here's Last Caress again. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now we're going to go to the only Minneapolis band on here. Granted, there are a handful of Minneapolis punk bands in the era this covered. This one is the one that ended up being the best known one. This was Taken a Ride by The Replacements. This is when they were clearly in their hardcore punk era before they were in more of their soulful, sad songs. What are you going to say?
Melodic.
Yeah, melodic. This is when they sounded more like Black Flag than REM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I am not a fan of jangly guitar.
I like their first 6 albums, and then when they lean too hard into being more melodic than, well, being more alternative than punk rock is when it really falls off for me, and that's at the point when their lead guitarist was long gone. Yeah, the Replacements are kind of a legendary band. They were a bunch of drunk teenagers with criminal records. Lead guitarist and the bass player were brothers. The brother was like 13 or 14 when they started, the bass player. Like, the whole band would just get unbelievably drunk on stage and played incredibly sloppy. They were not as precise as a lot of other hardcore bands were, which makes them a lot of fun. But yeah,
But I will say, for not really liking a lot of Replacement stuff, I did like this song.
I think if you don't like a lot of Replacement stuff, you would probably like their first album, Sorry Ma, I Forgot to Take Out the Trash, and then their first EP, which is kind of their second album, called Stink, which has some of my favorite songs by them, like Kids Don't Follow and Goddamn Job. But yeah.
So yeah.
Goddamn job.
Yeah, the song we used to cover, and then I got off stage, and Dave's like, "Hey, that's your Replacements cover." What? I thought we were covering off with their heads.
Yeah, and I have on my website, I have a couple of videos from that band, and I think one of them was Goddamn Job that somebody recorded on a cell phone from probably, 2009 or, well...
Something like that, probably.
Something like that. I thought it had a really good high energy to it, and I thought the raw delivery on the vocals was really good. I assume that the thrash and the speed metal bands of the time probably liked this song.
I think a lot of them did, yeah. Funny thing I heard on the No Dogs in Space podcast was about how when the Replacements were at their most compromised sound-wise, like their second to last album, when they were no punk, all jangle. Bob Stinson was out of the band. They were still scary enough in the studio that they scared Metallica because they decided to play a game called Dodge Knife, where they threw like steak knives at each other in the studio.
I remember you telling me about that. I'm like, that was the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard.
And in the same studio, Metallica was there at the same time, and they were like, fuck this. Why are these drunk assholes throwing knives everywhere? Let's leave.
I just imagine James Hetfield being like, the fuck? Or Lars Ulrich being like, these guys throwing fucking knives at each other? Like, what the fuck?
So yeah, even
guys, I don't think you guys should throw knives at each other, Kirk.
So yeah, even when they were at their most radio friendly, which oddly enough was not their most commercially successful album, they were the Trouble Boys. I think there's a book about them called that. They were a bunch of drunk fuck-ups, and that was endearing / why they couldn't last as a band.
Yeah.
And then the last song on here was one that I hadn't heard at all until I got this album at Record Store Day several years back, but still, it was a fun thing to discover. This was Amanda Ruth by Rank and File, and it was more or less a straightforward country song.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Kimman Brothers' earlier band, The Dills, and I'd always heard of Rank and File and how it was very country tinged, but I expected to be, maybe be a little bit more punk rock or something, maybe kind of like X to a degree, but no, it pretty much was kind of straight up, early '80s country.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing that I wrote down here is it sounds like an old 50s or 60s song, which, that would have a lot in common with...
But it was still good. I really liked it still.
It was really good,
yeah.
We are not anti-country on this podcast. Nope.
Love all the old outlaw guys, back when country was awesome. I mean, there's still a lot of awesome country, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, No, I don't think there's a whole lot of awesome country in the mainstream now.
No, there's like no awesome country in the mainstream. No. But yeah, there's still
like how Shooter Jennings has an album called "Putting the O Back in Country."
Yeah, the whole Nashville scene. You can talk to people who are really into country to get an earful about that. But yeah,
right. Our buddy Adam, he has plenty to say about the Nashville scene. He used to have more of a country career, and he actually went out there for a while and talked to people. And Yeah, that doesn't sound very fun. We talked about before, like, I don't think any of us really want to be on, like, a label, really, like, beyond maybe, like, a distribution deal, and, yeah.
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 Ownership is very much what it sounds like, and
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I really like about this whole comp in its entirety is I think it's a pretty cool overview about like the history of punk from 1974 to 1982. Yeah, like there's a lot of bands that aren't on here. Like this is a compilation from this era that doesn't have a Sex Pistols song. Granted, that's because the Sex Pistols don't like playing nice and clearing their stuff for albums like this. But it's not like every band that was essential in the scene at that time, but it's a good overview of the kind of variety that existed in it, and you can kind of get like a narrative flow to it. Like the first one, it was all like the CBGBs, kind of smaller bands, and then the next side you get to kind of like the second generation of London bands. So you're kind of seeing how things built up, and then side 3 you get like a little bit of hardcore, but a lot of like post-punk on it too, and then side 4 getting a lot of hardcore and a lot of like cowpunk. So you're kind of seeing the genre evolving in different directions, and you're getting an idea of to where it will go. And so it's, I think as a whole, you can see a lot of like cool bands that had a lot of influence, and then some that kind of fell through the cracks over time, and you can kind of see how the whole movement built.
And I was only here for the last fourth of it, but I will say it was gnarly.
Gnarly, yes.
Good gnarly.
Do a kickflip.
You went through the track list while we were looking at the Red Fang album. What would you think of the selection on the other sides?
So I will give a quick review. All right. Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones. We all kind of know it. It's a great song, but, it's kind of, it is what it is.
It's the most expected song on the whole thing.
Yes. See No Evil by Television. I don't know that one. I actually know very little of television stuff. Blank Generation by Richard Hell and the Voidoids. I love that song.
Do you think they should tour with Voivod?
No.
Not based on the music, just based on the name.
No. Song Producer by Dead Boys. One of my absolute favorite songs. Love that song.
Yeah, one of my favorite ones I heard on this one was that one.
I've heard of Tuff Darts. Never actually listened to them, so I can't say anything about Your Love Is Like Nuclear Waste.
It's as funny as it sounds.
I'm not really a Patti Smith fan, and I'm not even a huge fan of the song Hey Joe, so I don't know if I'd really care for her version of it anyway.
That's pretty much exactly what Dave said when he's like, yeah, Pete would say this about this song.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Get a Grip on Yourself by the Stranglers. I know some Stranglers stuff. Some stuff is fantastic. Some of it is... no.
It's off their first album, so it's on the fantastic side.
Oh, all right, I'll take your word for it. Again, the Rezillos, heard of, never actually heard them. So My Baby Does Good Sculptures, can't say anything about it. Suspect Device, Still Full of Fingers, kind of like a Blitzkrieg Bop. If you're gonna put a Still Full of Fingers song on here, it's gonna be the one you pick.
Yeah.
But it is a good song. Warsaw by Joy Division. I fucking love Warsaw by Joy Division. I'm not really much of a Joy Division fan for the most part, but Warsaw was on one of the Tony Hawk skater games.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
And it was, it's just absolute classic.
It's one of their songs from before they sound like Joy Division, but yes.
2468 Motorway by Tom Robinson Band. I'm only familiar with one other song by Tom Robinson Band, so I can't say anything about this one. Shake Some Action by Flamin Groovies. Again, heard of the band, never actually listened to them. Probably because they're called the Flamin Groovies.
Yeah.
But yeah, out of side 2, I've only actually ever heard 2 of the 6 songs. So, The Wait by the Pretenders. Not familiar with that song.
Do you remember the version on the Metallica 598 EP?
No.
Oh. Well, never mind then.
No, I think the Misfits covers are the only ones I'm actually familiar with off those recordings. But I'll have to check it out now. And again, I'm not familiar with this version. You Can't Put Your Arms Around a Memory by Johnny Thunders. I am familiar with the Duff McKagan cover version, which I didn't really care for. It's kind of more of a ballad.
Yeah, it's the slowest song on this record.
Yeah. And I have kind of a feeling I probably wouldn't like the Johnny Thunders version either.
I mean, if you don't like the Duff version, you probably won't like the Johnny Thunders version.
But could be wrong. Homicide by 999. love another.
That was a great song.
Oh, homicide! It's fucking, and the guitar work on there is just fantastic. I always loved that.
One of the things we commented on when we went through that side. So yeah.
Gang of Four, another one that I'm kind of familiar with, but I do not know Love Like Anthrax. But Lexicon Devil by Germs is another one of my classic favorite songs. It was actually on that same comp that I Love Living in the City was on. So I learned about the Germs same time I learned about Fear.
Oh, they were both LA bands at the same time. So.
Technically, I learned about the Germs 2 tracks before I learned about Fear. but yeah, that's my uneducated analysis.
That was very insightful.
It is funny that you said basically everything we said about Homicide without having been in on that part of it.
What I wonder, Pete isn't familiar, whatever the fuck your name is, isn't familiar with Your Love is Like a Nuclear Waste. I wonder if you would enjoy the overuse of the bomb sample, or if it would annoy the hell out of you.
I'm going to assume annoy, but we shall see.
I also said if Megaton was still a thing, it'd be a funny song for us to cover, because very much like in this kind of tongue-in-cheek style, which Megaton isn't, but I could also see us doing a version of that.
Right.
Megaton did some tongue-in-cheek stuff, though.
Well, yeah.
Alcoholic Wizards.
Sledgehammer,
yeah.
Wait, the song's called Sledgehammer? I thought it was called Slut Hamster.
I think I already told the story about how Clayton wanted to call a Valley of Shadows song Sluthammer, and I was like, no.
You didn't talk on mic about the time you tried to convince Clayton to have a band shirt for Valley of Shadows, which was 2 hamsters fucking.
Yeah, he was, I actually wasn't serious at all, but I think he thought it was, because he was just like, no fucking hamsters. I even mocked it up.
Wait, stop. So, his problem wasn't that the hamsters were fucking. So perhaps if they were scorpions fucking, it'd be okay, or maybe koala bears fucking. Hey, that's fine, but no fucking hamsters, right?
Well, next time we have Clayton on here, we'll find out if it would have been acceptable if it was 2 scorpions fucking.
What if 2 scorpions fucking becomes the podcast's official merchandise on the shirt?
Well,
if anybody wants that,
I want 10%.
That would be fair.
All right, I think that's about all we need to wrap it up.
This is going to be our longest one yet.
Yep, TSO Elliott. Plug your shit.
Well, TSO Elliott's not in a band. So, actually, all right, you know what? I got screwed up earlier with my other fake name because I'm already using one of my fake names in the band. So, you know what? I'm going to transition over into Hotrod Stewart.
All right, Hotrod Stewart. What would you like to plug?
Hi. Hotrod Stewart here is in a band called Hot Rods to the Gods. We're just starting. So, big things coming in 6 months. We'll see.
Well, when this will actually drop, 5 months. We'll see.
All right. In that case, come to our first show last week.
But yeah, and then Steve put all of our plug stuff in the pre-recorded outro. So I'm not going to try to remember everything with that.
Yeah, we'll probably retool that, and I'll probably
and you guys are in a band called the Illegitimates?
Yes.
Illegitimates.
The Illegitimates. So many people do think we're, when I say it, they think that I'm saying the illiterates rather than the illiterates. Which,
no, that'd be a better rap band name.
Yeah.
Now, where did you get a crazy name like the Illiterates from?
Yeah, some asshole.
Yeah.
Adam's brother.
Yeah.
The biggest Def Leppard fan on the planet.
Yeah, drummer.
So, would people be able to find this online or to buy? Or
I think you can. This was put out by Rhino, who does a lot of, retro re-release stuff. I would check out their website. I found this at Record Store Day. I'm sure the record shop that I got it at doesn't have any more copies because this was years ago. But this is just something you can keep an eye out for. We have said the names of all the songs in here, and I'm sure you could find all of them on your streaming platform of choice. So I bet if you really wanted to, you could recreate this as a playlist.
And I will put a track listing in the description, and you can go and listen to it if you want.
Yeah, this was side 1, side B with Dave and Steve. Catch you on the flip side.
Vermin Supreme 2024. We're rolling. I already did
We already
metal,
did that joke. Can't do it again, ever, on any episode.
Side 1, Side B is a Floof Goof Studios production. Check us out on the interwebs by going to my website, killrockmusic.com. That's KILRAVOCK music.com. And there's a tab for Side 1, Side B. And additionally, you can check out me and Dave's projects, The Illiterates and Lucid Fugue, respectively. You can also check us out on Instagram at KillRockMusicSWS and Dave_Diction. You can also check out our subreddit, Side 1, Side B, and there I post various updates and memes and other bullshit. Thank you.
Waka waka. Suck it. What's up?